to come together and deal with this fight. We are on the same page. There is a reason they call me the Biden of Brooklyn.
A few moments later.
We are, as Americans, is to go to our center of government and raise our voices when we believe government is not responding accordingly. So I'm not pushing this off on New Yorkers. I'm saying to New Yorkers, you're angry and I'm angry. And the source of our discontent lies in Washington, D.C.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who is still complaining about the illegal immigration crisis that he essentially supported in his city because he wanted New York City to be a sanctuary city. Okay, this is something that he supported as mayor, he supported it as a candidate, and now he's boohoo, whining, and crying about the illegal immigrants showing up to New York City and overwhelming the city. Now, Eric Adams has been back and forth with the Biden administration, begging them for federal money to help out with the crisis that is happening in New York City. However, Biden has been giving Eric Adams the cold shoulder. And it's not just Eric Adams. He's been giving basically all of the Democrat leaders the cold shoulder that are complaining about the illegal immigration crisis and the fact that the border is not secure. Like, for example, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, he's been ignoring her requests for funding. He's been ignoring her requests in regards to the needs of Arizona to deal with the crisis. Brandon Johnson hasn't really been as critical of the Biden administration in regards to begging for money and begging for help. But yeah, I mean, he's ignoring everybody, right? He seems to be non-responsive. Now, again, Eric Adams has went to Washington, D.C. multiple times to try to get the federal government to act on this situation. However, like I told you guys, they've been ignoring him. Now, Eric Adams is currently under federal investigation for his campaign, potentially influence peddling. And I believe that this is a warning to Eric Adams to close his mouth. Okay, this is the Democrats cracking the whip on Eric Adams, who continues to panic over the fact that his city is being destroyed by the illegal immigration crisis. That is his words, not mine, right? Even though I agree with him, right? His city is going to be destroyed by this crisis. And despite the fact that he is under investigation by Biden's Department of Justice, he is still warning about the potential consequences of the illegal immigration crisis in New York City as they face budget cuts. And he is telling New Yorkers to point the finger at Biden, to point the finger at the Biden administration if you want to place blame for what is happening in New York City. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and play the videos of Eric Adams basically blaming Biden and his warning that he's giving in regards to what's going to happen if the illegals can't work or the federal government does not help. Take a look.
We are, as Americans, is to go to our center of government and raise our voices when we believe government is not responding accordingly. So I'm not pushing this off on New Yorkers. I'm saying to New Yorkers, you're angry and I'm angry. And the source of our discontent lies in Washington, D.C. And we need to mobilize and rally and go to D.C. and say to the national government, this is not fair what's happening to New York City. And so what I want to successfully do, I want to tell to New Yorkers that class that you're saying should not be cut. This is not our desire. Our desire is we put money in those classes. We put money in senior services. We put money in cleaning our streets. So I need to connect New Yorkers to the source of the problem, because many New Yorkers, when I meet them on the subways or on the streets, they say to me, well, I never knew you couldn't stop people from coming in that are migrant asylum seekers. I never knew that you don't have the authority to do deportation. You don't have the authority to say that you're not going to house people. Many New Yorkers don't know this. They're not aware of it. And so it is my role to educate them This is who is responsible for what we're seeing in the city of New York. So I don't think it's pushing it off. I think it's what I was always told as a child, as a young adult. If you want to advocate for something, don't depend on just one person. Get engaged. Being a detached spectator in this full contact sport called life is not what I subscribe to.
Amidst the backdrop of this continued onslaught of migrants that's costing money, canceled police classes. So bottom line, how sustainable are these crime gains that you identify as your top priority heading into 2024?
I think your question is so important because when I talk about the devastation impact of the migrant and asylum seekers, people only think about the volume of people that are coming in. There are byproducts to this. Cut in services, like we had to postpone the police class. Looking at some of the budgetary cuts. Having a body of people, many young, who can't work. You don't even need an imagination to figure out that if you have someone 4 or 5 months and said you cannot work, you cannot feed your family, you cannot provide for yourself, what happens? Lack of opportunities, an idle mind, is the devil's workshop, as they say. And so there are a lot of things that are feeding off of the migrant policy that, as I said a few months ago, we're going to start seeing the physical aspects of this crisis. We've done a good job of keeping that physical aspect away from New Yorkers, but the dam has burst. And so the police department has done an amazing job.
Yeah, so there you have it. Eric Adams calling on New Yorkers to mobilize and rally against the Biden administration, right? To go to D.C., right? He wants to hold anti-illegal immigration rallies in Washington, D.C., right? Against Biden. Wow, what a way to end 2023. I got to tell you guys, my favorite story of 2023 has been the illegal immigration crisis coming to these liberal cities, right? Because the hypocrisy that has been exposed from these Democrats that supported these sanctuary city policies that basically have trapped them in the situation that they're in regards to being forced to take care of the illegal immigrants because they never thought that they'd actually really get them. Again, it's been one of the highlights of the year, okay? Even though overall it's bad for the country, right? Because even though they are being sent to these liberal cities, I don't necessarily like seeing the liberal cities fall apart, right? I actually don't like it for the citizens there and the negative effects and consequences that are going to be a result of the illegal immigration, which is what Eric Adams alluded to, okay? When you talk about budget cuts, okay, New York City having to cut their budget, their police force, because they have to use money to take care of the migrants. And also on top of that, the migrants not being able to work and to take care of themselves. What do you think that's going to lead to, right? That is a recipe for disaster, right? Less police, and you have more people that are going to be desperate to survive, which means that they're going to turn to crime. And you're talking about hundreds of thousands, right? You're talking about hundreds of thousands of young military-age males who can't get a job, can't work. What do you think they're going to do in order to survive? So, again, I understand why Eric Adams is feeling the pressure, right? Because he is the mayor of New York before he's a Democrat. So, although I believe that the federal government is trying to send Eric Adams a message through the FBI raids and investigations, and I also think he has Me Too allegations as well, too. I do believe that he understands that as mayor of New York City, the citizens come first, and I can't just be silent about this, even if it makes the Democrat Party as a whole look bad. Now, on the other hand, his counterpart, woke Mayor Brandon Johnson out in Chicago, he's, blaming Republicans. He's claiming that it's racist. He's having a hissy fit over Greg Abbott, right? But he won't dare point the finger at Joe Biden the same way that Eric Adams is doing and saying, hey, it's Biden's fault, right? Because he knows what will happen to him, okay? Democrats love to keep their Negroes in line, right? And Eric Adams seems to be the only black Democrat with enough cojones to actually speak up and to, push back against the Democrats, right? Again, it's pretty fascinating how that works. But with that being said, I think that Eric Adams still is missing the point here, right? I think that Eric Adams should actually be demanding that Joe Biden close the border and that we do mass deportations. I do not think that the answer is allowing the illegal immigrants to work, okay? I don't think that's the answer. And the reason why I don't think that's the answer is because that's only going to make the problem worse, right? So imagine letting all these people in, okay, because they already believe that the border's open. Biden told him to come during his campaign, and that's what started the influx of illegals coming into the country in the first place, is the fact that Biden said, come, right? Everybody come. We're not going to turn you away. And they came, right? Now, when they get here, if you allow them to work, that only incentivizes more of them to come, which is going to make the problem worse, right? That's part of the reason why the Biden administration is not responding to the Democrats, because Biden knows that he can't really help them, because if he helps them, then he has to acknowledge that it's a problem, that this is an actual real issue, which goes against the narrative that has been pushed by the mainstream liberal media and the Democrats, Corinne Jean-Pierre, Mayorkas, them saying that, oh no, the border's actually secure, that this is not a real problem. So Biden actually acknowledges the problem. If he helps out the Democrats, then he has to help out the Republican red states at the border that are dealing with the issue too. He has to acknowledge that it's an issue, and then he has to do things like, for example, send federal funding to help take care of the issue in New York and in Chicago and all these other places that are begging for money, that are begging for help. He has to let the illegals work, and what that does is that it just makes the problem even worse. That makes it so more people are going to start coming, right? If you think that a lot of people coming now, which, I mean, again, we have a record amount, so objectively speaking, it is a lot of people. It's more than we've ever seen before. Imagine what would happen if all of the illegals were allowed to work, okay, and they essentially were given amnesty, which is what Democrats ultimately want to do. They want to give them amnesty. If they were allowed to work and given amnesty, oh my goodness, the floodgates would open. If you think it's bad now, it would get even worse, because that would be a green light to say, you know what? If you come here and you get here, you will eventually be allowed to work. Now, you got to suffer a little bit, right? For you got to, stay in some of these shelters, okay? There may be some issues initially, but if you stay long enough, eventually they'll fall. That is the message that will be sent. So as much as I, kind of sympathize with Eric Adams in regards to the fact that his city is being destroyed, I really can't feel that bad for him, because one, he asked for it, and two, he's still not saying the things that he really needs to say. He does not need to be asking for the illegal immigrants to be allowed to work. He needs to be asking for them to be deported, right? Because that is the federal government's job. He needs to say, look, we need mass deportations and we need to secure the border. That fixes the problem, right? While at the same time, it also deters people from coming, because they know that, well, if they come, they're not going to get jobs. They're not going to be able to work. They're not going to be provided for. The border is going to be more secure. Okay. So again, that is the real incentive structure that we should be creating, which is for them not to come. What Eric Adams is advocating for is an incentive structure to basically put a Band-Aid on a open bullet hole wound, right? That's what he's trying to do. And that's not going to work. Throwing money at the problem in regards to helping out New York with more resources and allowing the illegals to work is not going to fix the problem. It's basically a gift to the businesses, right? It's a gift to the businesses of New York, right, in order to lower wages, and it's going to hurt the working class people there, okay, who are trying to get jobs and who want better and higher wages, because the illegals are going to be willing to work for less, because working for minimum wage here, right, even in a place like New York, is going to be significantly better situation than it would be in a place like Venezuela, okay, or wherever they come from. So again, you're not doing anything but hurting the people in New York. You're incentivizing more illegal immigrants to come, and you're not actually fixing the root cause of the problem, which is the fact that our border security is a disaster. So with that being said, I mean, he's right. He's right about what's to come for New York City. New York City is only going to get worse. What happens when you have a bunch of single military-age men that don't have legal means of providing for themselves? They're going to turn to crime, right? And you imported hundreds of thousands of them into your city. Yeah, it's going to end up being a disaster. It's going to be a disaster. He's right. And then now you're defunding the police. You're defunding sanitation, education. Yeah, this ain't going to end well. But again, you don't have anybody else to blame but yourself. I know that you're pointing the finger at Biden. Yes, it's his fault, but you called yourself the Biden of Brooklyn, right? You compared yourself to Biden, right? I'm the Biden of Brooklyn is what Eric Adams said, right? He supported Democrat agenda. He supported the sanctuary cities. And the voters of New York, not all of them, but a lot of them, majority of them, supported it as well too. So, hey, it's hard for me to feel bad for you, but he is right about the long-term consequences of what's happening here. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.